The next category is the housing category, and this was won by Kerry Hill Architects for Martin number 38 here in Singapore. Do you mind sitting here, please? Is that okay?
Certainly. Very close to you.
So, hi. Tell us about yourself and your architecture company to start with, and where you're from.
Well, that's a long story.
Is this on, actually?
Where do you put it on?
Yeah.
Telling about myself is much too long a story for this 10-minute interview. Suffice to say, I'm an Australian. I arrived in Asia in 1971. I opened the practice here in Singapore in 1978. We now have an office of 45 people in Singapore and 20 in Perth. Almost the United Nations. We have something like almost 20 nationalities of people working in our two studios. We do a variety of work pretty much throughout Southeast Asia, the South Continent, Australia, and also in Europe. Our work has ranged over the years from quite a lot of hotel work, particularly resort hotels, but in order to diversify, about 2001 we started entering competitions, and lucky for us, our strike rate has been pretty good. I think we've won 6 out of 10. They haven't all been built, but 1 or 2 of them have, and others are likely to. So we're a fairly diversified practice, but based here and with an equally important practice in Perth in Australia.
Okay, and tell us about the project that won the category.
Well, it's one of our first apartment buildings that we've done here in Singapore. It's done for a very good developer who is a developer of premium accommodation here. This was an interesting project for us simply because he was prepared to go on an architectural journey, prepared to be different from the run-of-the-mill, prepared to allow us a reasonable amount of freedom in our choice of materials, aesthetics, plan types. All in all, for a, dare I say it, in inverted commas, for a developer, an enlightened developer, he was very brave.
And architecturally, describe the scheme to us. Where is it, and what does it set out to do?
Yes, it's it's about 10 minutes from here, on the Singapore River, or close to the Singapore River, not too far from the CBD, and walking distance to one of Singapore's spots of nightlife. It was designed primarily for young professionals who want to be close to all of those things, particularly the CBD. And it's in an area that has, or was, a warehouse area, and has recently been zoned by the government, by the URA, to permit a zoning change from commercial to residential. So what we have here is 80% residential, 20% commercial. The commercial takes place at the ground plane in the form of 2 restaurants, or a restaurant and a cafe, and we've designed that in such a way as to engage with the public realm. The building has been both program and climate driven. You know, in Singapore we have a lot of quite dull and gloomy days. I mean, go outside today and you'll see that. So the trick with building in the tropics is not to exclude the sun, but to invite it in through a series of filters. And in all of our buildings, whether it's through sophisticated louver systems or very basic timber louver systems, we endeavour to do that. Um, Within this building, there is complete freedom of choice by the occupant as to how they wish to control or mediate both climate, noise, privacy, and in doing that, of course, the building facade becomes quite animated. In fact, every photo we've ever taken of it has been different. And so we sit there thinking or looking at which ones we're going to pick when we submit for an award. They're all quite different. So it's almost pattern making, but we have nothing to do with it. The building has been hoisted up into the air to its maximum permitted building height, but within the restrictions of the site, we couldn't use all of the GFA by doing that, and so that developed or left quite a large gap at the bottom, which has become generous volumes for extended outdoor living spaces for the residents.
And you say you came to Singapore in the 70s, and did you, at that time, could you foresee the changes that were going to happen in Singapore, but also in the wider region?
Well, the region, of course, we all know has changed dramatically. To be quite honest, Singapore was very boring in the late 70s, early 80s when I came here. I think it's improved immeasurably in the last 10 to 15 years. So has the standard of architecture and the sense of architectural community that now exists here. I mean, there would have been no interest whatsoever in having an event like this in Singapore even 20 years ago. 20 to 30 years ago, there were foreign firms who came to town, delivered one or two large buildings and left. Singaporean firms did the run-of-the-mill stuff. Today, yes, there are still large foreign firms coming to town, some better than others, but more and more, the quite important and certainly the more interesting buildings are being done by homegrown Singaporeans, people who have either been educated through the architectural school at NUS, and they're particularly active in housing, particularly single residential housing. Singapore isn't just all apartments. And also those, of course, who have gone away overseas and come back to live and ultimately practice here.
And the previous speaker was talking about the possibility that, not yet, but soon there could emerge a sort of Singaporean approach to architecture that sort of sums up or expresses what's unique about Singapore. He was sort of saying that at the moment it's about the cultural melting pot, but perhaps that isn't enough to define Singapore.
Well, he's pinched a word I used yesterday in a talk, the word approach. You know, I was asked what the Singapore style was. I hope Singapore, quite frankly, doesn't have a style. You know, I think that'd be misplaced. But I have seen an emerging approach to design, which has evolved over a period of perhaps the last 10 years. So perhaps the style lies in the design lies in the style, but lies in the approach. And that approach, of course, embodies many of the things that the rest of the world is looking at. You know, buildings have to be green. Here it's not that difficult. You know, you can actually plant plants on Singapore buildings and they will grow. So in that sense, the greening of architecture is probably easier here on the equator than it is in most countries. No, I simply think that Singapore is maturing, and the design community is emerging as a force. It's a place today where developers understand that good design sells.
So it's an optimistic and hopeful place to be working then. It's a good place to be working then.
Oh, it's a terrific place to work, and it's also a terrific place to live in. I would say there are very few cities of just over 5 million people that are as easy to live in and to work in I mean, you know, how many cities in the world can you drive into a car park and out without having to run to the cash machine? I mean, here we have a cash card which is mounted on the dashboard of your car. We drive in, we drive out. There's no effort. On the toll roads, the same thing happens. There's no effort. Dealing with the authorities. I mean, all of our building submissions are online. Unless you've got a problem, you don't personally ever have to go to talk to anybody. It's dealt with all electronically. I mean, life has been made efficient and easy here.
Sounds great. I think you're selling it very well. Thanks so much for your time. Congratulations on winning the category, and good luck with the big prize later on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.